Hey everybody. So, I was thinking a lot last night about this stuff. Isolations, and Poi-led isolations, hand-led isolations, and thinking maybe the terms Poi-led or hand-led isolations might be a better way of describing what I may have previously referred as when we're talking about single poi, just one poi doing a hand-led inversion, or a Poi-led inversion. When it's one poi, can it be inverted? I don't know, but what it really boils down to is isolations, and here, let me just tell you what I'm getting at here. So, if we think of this marker as a poi, maybe the black tip here is the poi head, our hand would be controlling it somewhere around here. Let's just say like static spin here. If this black dot, this imaginary point in space, were the center of rotation here, and we were holding it right here with our hand, spinning it around here like such. This would be like a like a static spin, and the center of rotation again is right here in this imaginary spot where our hand is never moving and everything is rotating around our hand. But when we do isolations, that's when it starts looking like this, where the center of rotation is somewhere halfway down the poi length in this imaginary point in space that happens to be represented by this black dot right here. If the hand and the poi head are traveling around this circle, which is the unit circle length, was just the length of the entire poi. See, so yeah, when it's doing a perfect isolation here, we should really never see that black dot, the center of rotation. Again, it's a just imaginary point in space, but it's halfway down the poi, so it's just right in the middle, and we're rotating around it. Our hand is rotating around it. The poi head is rotating around it. So the center of rotation somewhere in the middle, directly here. Now, differentiating this from, this is just a regular isolation. Now let's think about poi-led isolation or hand-led isolation. So, if we were to change this regular isolation into a poi-led isolation, it would start looking like this. See how we've kind of gone around this original middle point here? And in a sense, the poi head, which is this represented by the black part of the marker, is leading its way around. That's why we're calling this a poi-led isolation. So, I don't really know how to mathematically describe this. This center of rotation, is it still the center of rotation? I don't really know, but obviously it's something different than this regular isolation. And we sort of break out of this imaginary point here, and we start traveling around it when we're doing a poi-led isolation. Now, similarly, for a hand-led isolation, that would be something like this, where our hand is leading its way around this circle, but we're not covering up the circle here. And again, this circle is this imaginary point in space that's represented by the middle of an isolation. We're doing a regular isolation. So, another thing to point out is, when we can certainly do these types of poi-led or hand-led isolations with one arm out and the other arm, tucked behind our back. But it conveniently works out with these things when your other arm is this center here. And like, for instance, when you're doing a hand-led isolation, we're literally dragging our hand around this point, which is our arm. And hand-led isolations or hand-led inversions kind of work cool like that, because you're just dragging the poi around your arm here. And again, that re-emphasizes the point that we're not directly over the center point as in a regular isolation. We're going around the point as we continue the isolation. So it's a little different. The center of rotation is changed somewhat. I don't know how to describe it, but that's what's going on in a hand-led isolation. And similarly, poi-led isolation, same thing. We're going around this point. Now with Poi-led isolation or Poi-led inversion, we're pushing the poi head around our arm, which is a little bit more difficult. But another thing to point out is if we're doing, say, hand-led isolation, and we reverse it, boom. Now that's a poi-led isolation. Again, reverse hand-led isolation, reverse poi-led isolation. So that was pretty much it. Just a kind of an interesting mathematical note to differentiate between the regular isolations where the center point is covered the whole time, as represented by this picture here. But with poi-led or hand-led isolations, we're dragging it around that original central point, not quite touching it. So, hope that maybe gives you some insight into what's going on with these, and maybe we can figure out what the hell's going on.